everyone. We only had 24 hours in Washington, D.C., so we immediately headed for the White House. On our way, we walked past the National Theater building. This building, located in the heart of downtown D.C., has a long history in the nation's capital. It is the second oldest theater in the nation. We were thrilled to wander past the World War I Memorial. This memorial was dedicated to the 4.7 million American sons and daughters who served in the war to end all wars. In 2020, the memorial was expanded to honor all Americans who served in this war while wearing the uniforms. I have to admit the size of the White House came as a surprise. As we walked around the city and observed buildings that expanded a whole city block, I expected the White House to be a little bit bigger. It does look beautiful, silhouetted by the evening sky. After seeing the White House, we made our way to the Washington Monument. I had done some research and learned that this monument was actually built in sections. Since it was late, we were not able to go inside to see the museum. It was inspiring to see these monuments we had only heard and read about in history books. Our next stop was the World War II Memorial, and it was among one of my favorite stops. As we walked around admiring each state that was represented in this harsh war, it reminded us of all those who were affected. It's a beautiful tribute to those who fought and died for our country. The core area of the National Mall extends between the United States Capitol and the Lincoln Memorial. The National Mall and the Memorial Park is actually open 24 hours a day, and we enjoyed visiting around midnight that evening. These monuments are beautiful and inspiring during the day, but I feel an even grander scene at night. The Grand Lincoln Memorial towers over the reflecting pool and is a must-see for anyone coming to Washington, D.C. The memorial itself is 19 feet tall, statue of President Lincoln. He sits here looking out over the mall of the country that he fought so hard to unite. As you can see, we have the Washington Monument in the palm of our hands. This was one of my favorite memorials. At the Korean War Veterans Memorial, we learned that freedom is not free. As you walk along the sidewalk, it appears these soldiers are marching with you. They look so lifelike and remind you of all the people who were willing to serve and sacrifice for a land they didn't even know. While walking around that evening looking for something to eat, we came across the Ford Theater and the home where President Lincoln died. On the night of April 14th, 1865, the mortally wounded president was carried to a back bedroom in this house where President Lincoln died the next morning. In Washington, D.C., you have the opportunity to visit over 20 free Smithsonian museums. We went online and were able to get tickets to 2 of them. Our first stop was the National Museum of American History. From history, science, art, culture, and more that all came alive at this free museum. It's hard to believe back in 1930, gas only cost 2 cents a gallon. We currently have an RV and love camping. It was interesting to see that RVs have not changed a huge amount over the years. Back in 1955, a train fare from Chicago to Los Angeles cost roughly $55.44 in coach. Today, a ticket that runs that same distance will cost you roughly $650 one way. From coal-powered sources to diesel engines actually changed the way for transportation on the railroad. We have come a long ways. Here's a fun fact. KLM Airlines started in 1950 and is still operating today. In the early years, air travel was reserved for the elite since ticket prices were so high. Starting in 1950, air travel became a little more accessible to the general public. Tickets were cheaper, allowing more people to travel by air. In 1950, the insides of the plane looked more like the old-fashioned railroad train layouts. We only had 4 hours to spend in each museum, but could have easily stayed all day long. Our next stop was the National Museum of Natural History. A few of my favorites were Meet a Mummy and the Egyptian area. The history and the details were so impressive. Next was the Hall of Fossils with the giant skeletal structures found of these animals. As you wander around, you'll see several of these bronze statues showing our early heritage as we learn about our distant past. We only had 24 hours to visit as much as we could. We were able to see many things in our allotted time, so plan your itinerary to hit the most important major attractions, and anything else is a bonus. Here are a few tips that we learned from our trip. One would be, we went in November, which was nice for avoiding the crowds, but it gets quite chilly, so make sure you dress appropriately. Also, by staying downtown, we could walk to almost everything that we needed to see, so that was a bonus. Also, remember that majority of the people commute into the city and then leave in the evening, so there's not a lot of food options open downtown, so keep that in mind. Also, we found that the National Mall is a lot longer and farther walk than you thought it would be. So our last one would be get tickets early to things you want to see if you can. Remember to get out there and travel and see the world. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you can like and subscribe, I sure would appreciate it.